Winds are offshore right now. You can really feel it picking up.
That hurricane.
I think that hurricane, yeah. So that slurricane down south is really starting to creep its way up here.
A hurricane of jacarandas.
Sir, where do we start today?
I don't know. What's the prompt? Wise guy?
I was thinking this morning about inspiration.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out where people draw their inspiration from.
Let me guess. You were laying in bed, just thinking about me and Jared, feeling so inspired.
Jeez.
Just
I put on a bird shirt. I put on a collared tee and really just short stuff and just said, "Hey, you want to go on a boat?"
You do have a very
Jared's
boat
looking
outfit
very powerful
on.
today, everybody.
Yeah, he looks.
It's a semi-fresh haircut. I gotta get one more before I leave the country forever, guys. I'm not coming back. How's that inspire you? That inspire connection by creating a memorable experience.
Like, yeah. Where do you guys draw your inspiration from? Like, do you guys have a time where you set aside, we're like, I want to, I don't know, find new things right now? So much of, I'm working on a lot of video content right now. And I was talking this morning with Diego and saying, sometimes I'm just so tired of filming in the cafes because I've been taking pictures inside these cafes for years now. And I'll film, I can't tell you how many times I've filmed through or taken a picture through the window at Portola. And so every time I go there to take a picture, I'm like, I've done this before. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to find that new thing or make it feel new, or I'm not inspired at the moment. So where do you guys go to find new inspiration?
What makes you not inspired?
I think it's that it's that idea of, I've done this before. I'm not doing anything new. So it's that repetition mindset. Diesel's out in force again today.
Diesel. I don't know. You're also talking to a couple of people who made their careers by doing repetitive stuff. Like, I still draw inspiration and have a lot of fun making espresso and having people be like, wow, it's the best shot I've had in forever. So I don't know. For me, I think there's something to be said about maybe like positive feedback, reinforcement, and praise for like the work that we do from the right sources, maybe for some of that. I think for me, if I'm doing tons of behind the scenes work and it just you don't get kind of the validation you used to, you have to adjust, which is challenging, and you have to find your inspiration, the kind that's like dopamine releasing inspiration, because there's long-term concepts that consistency. We've talked about it a million times on this podcast it's key, right? If you want something long-term, you have to be consistent. You have to show up no matter how you feel. So there's that. But if you're looking for actual like inspiration and being psyched, personally, I get it a lot from collaboration, working with people. I get it from helping solve problems. I get it from creating something that I feel like is unique or fun and expressing my creativity.
Yeah.
And I get it by performing in some capacity too. In terms of like, generally like being fed as a person, but everybody's different. You go through phases of change in your life where like things that you used to be super into, you're not as into anymore. Some of which because you have changed, and some of which because maybe your job and your like focuses and your needs have changed too. So
yeah.
I think that's maybe an endless journey. When we were starting this business, I was endlessly inspired by different businessy, leadershipy books, and I still am, but I need to be able to apply things too. And again, that's me. I'm not the same as other people. Some people, and I actually don't understand them as much, literally could just learn and are inspired by the concept of learning with no application indefinitely. And I'm just like, good for you. You're crazy to me. Like, I have zero interest and that's why traditional school is always a challenge for me. It's like, you're going to make me go to these classes where I have to learn stuff that I have no interest in applying, nor maybe will I ever.
Yeah.
And there's people who love that shit. And it's not for me. So I'm not going to answer it. Yeah, I don't have an answer, but
Well,
that's
for me, from like a design standpoint, when I'm working on design things, I will typically go, okay, well, what's my inspiration for this thing that I'm working on? And then I'll go look up other things that might have the vibe or the feeling that I'm going for, and use that as like a guiding light. Be like, okay, cool, I like the way that, this word flows here, and I like how that feels. And then I'll just take those things and use that as my inspiration. So creating coffee or creating a business that people can work, like you were saying when we were starting Cat and Cloud, you took inspo from different businesses. And so is there a time do you set aside to like be like, all right, this is my discovery time?
Not usually for me. For me, it's just paying attention to what's around, seeing, looking at things, absorbing things. I don't know. Inspiration's a weird thing because it's not something that I'm actively seeking out consciously.
Yeah.
It's usually the times when I'm most inspired or when I'm surprised by something or I see something that makes me go, yes, that's it. That's the best version of that. And I like that. And that gives me a boost of energy, but I don't know if it's directly correlating. It's good. It feels good, but I don't know if it necessarily affects the way I would approach my work on the day to day. You know what I mean? Because there's a couple different kinds of inspiration. Like when you're talking about inspiration for a project and you're saying, okay, what am I trying to do? Like what's inspiring me? What's my inspiration for this thing? There's almost like, okay, I have this higher level goal that's pushing me to make this thing, whether that's, create a design or make a video or whatever. And then oftentimes the thing that you're expressing is true. The tasks that lie underneath that inspiration can sometimes feel mundane. You're like, I've taken this photo at Portola through this window 1,000,000 times. You could say the same thing about creating a design in Illustrator. I've drawn a line or a semicircle 1,000,000 times, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. You know what I mean? It's geared at a higher purpose, which, I mean, if I had to distill it down, which I don't know if I can, but I'm inspired by things that have some sort of higher purpose or higher level goal associated with them. I don't like to do stuff just for the sake of doing stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes from within. Sometimes it's stuff I see. I don't have 3:00 on Thursdays my absorbing inspiration time.
Do you find that, like you said, when you find something, you're like, oh, that's the one. Do you find that those come from similar places? Like thinking back to the times where you've thought that or you've experienced that, like where has that come from?
I think inspiration comes a lot of the times from the unexpected. And the way to find the unexpected is to, have a broad scope interest in lots of things, right? Like I think about when I started this thread in my mind, I was like, well, I'm inspired by a shit ton of different stuff.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I get reignited when I do something out of the ordinary. Like I went something that I enjoy but never choose to do and never really seek out planning to do would be like going to see a show on or off Broadway, right? The Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, I haven't seen it, or I went and saw Dear Evan Hansen, right? And I would never pick that, but then I go and you see these humans perform a thing that's either, I mean, for me, I'm breaking it down in a bunch of different ways. Maybe somebody who goes and sees these shows aren't, but it's like the vocal talent, the choreography of working together, the planning, the stage set. It's like something that I'm like, like I would not consider myself somebody who's like looking to go to a bunch of theater, but I actually like love it. Like Lion King, I saw that. It's like, damn, and I think you could, and it would be wise to explore things like that because you do kind of open up your mindset. And I think to re-answer your question, I find inspiration all over the place. And most often I find it in ways that I can attach something that doesn't really specifically fit neatly in the box of tasks and work that I need to do, and find a way to correlate it with, expression. Swift Street is one for me that's like, you've seen all these cafes, you see all these people design them, and then you go on to take your window reference. It's like, go to Pinterest and go at pictures through a window. You know what I'm saying? Like, I will literally do something like that. And then I'll look at all these different people's pictures through a window and then decide what kind of concepts I like from all of them and then start smattering them together. And that's what Swift Street, the design of it was for me. I was looking at stuff like that, and then I didn't even get to articulate it all in the way I wanted to fully, because you have to work within a budget, right? You always have these expectations, limitations. But you still, like, the inspiration is in trying to create like the best version of a thing that's higher level, like you said, Chris. And for me, that's, I think, one of the best pieces of advice I could get is get outside of do things that you maybe wouldn't expect to like. And it's a challenge for me. Like, there's things all the time that I want to say no to by default that I probably shouldn't. And I'm just working on that.
That's interesting to me because I see you as a guy who's kind of up for anything.
I push myself to, but I don't necessarily want to.
Like, what's an example of something that, like, the last thing you did where you're like, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway?
Well, I mean, honestly, like that example of going to the Broadway show, all of them, like, by default, I don't want to go to them, even when I can tell myself it's going to be awesome. Or like a lot of social gatherings, like I was talking about it today with my partner, like weddings or sailing. Oh, I got invited to go sailing. It's like, I don't want to go on that. For whatever reason, like by default, and I don't have a good reason, just like by default, I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to. And oftentimes I'll go, yeah, I'll do it. And then I end up having something good comes of it.
Why do you think you have that initial thing where I don't want to do it? Because
yeah.
So the first time I met you, I was just like, oh, this dude's super social. He's incredibly friendly.
Yeah.
He's like really open. He's easy to get along with, so it seems like if someone was just looking at you from broad scope, it's like, yeah, Jared's down for whatever all the time.
Yeah.
So what makes your brain go like, nah, I don't want to go sailing, you think?
I think it's a really good question. I think it's something I'm learning and working on in general, and it might be just like life circumstances knocks you back and you're kind of working your way back to a place. But I remember a lot of those times when I felt like I was really a linchpin in building something, and like my personality was helping with it a lot. And so I felt like I was always on. And so when you're always on, it's easier for me to be that person but it's also a little bit tiring. I had way more anxiety and stuff back then, but I would be like, yeah, I'm always basically trying to be the extroverted version of myself and never resting it. So I think there was a little bit of that. I am down for a lot of things. I also felt like I was maybe in a deeper community, like surrounded by more people doing more stuff, at the time. And that, we were so like in this building specialty culture phase, you and I, and a lot of people at that time, that was like, I felt like we were really out there pioneering, and it was fun. Like there was always something new we were working on and learning. And now it's not different, but it's more self-driven and a little more in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel as like connected in that way. The pandemic, I think, was a huge part of that. So I'm still like kind of finding my way back from that for sure, actually,
Yeah, it's interesting to see how social circles evolve. Because if I rewind and think about the time that you're talking about in terms of when we started working together and our whole lives were revolving around coffee, which is interesting to say because we own a coffee company now, right? But
we were competing.
It's revolving around coffee in a different way, right? We are around a big group of our peers. So most people that we're hanging out with are more or less around our age, and they're doing the same sort of things.
So we're like in school together.
Yeah, everyone's going to these barista competitions together. Everyone's going to SCA together. It's like a group of it kind of feels like you're at school.
Felt like we were at school.
Yeah, exactly. It's that kind of feeling.
It was like all the classes in Harry Potter, because we didn't live together, right? You get to go see each other.
Exactly.
These things.
That's exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
And that is a lot different than how it's like now where a lot of those people who were our peers and we had this common thread with, they live in different places, they're doing different things. We're kind of on our own little situation, and we have a different relationship with the people around us. Where it's like before, most of the people who we were around on the day-to-day in coffee were our friends. Now, most of the people we're around in coffee day-to-day are our employees.
Exactly.
There's
There's a lack of freedom.
Is there a different mindset that happens when you're around your friends versus around?
Well, yeah, you can be whoever you want to be, however you want to be in that group, and you're pretty much accepted. Whereas if you're in charge and you're a boss and an owner, you have to be really, really intentional, and you have to like button up professionally, right? Every decision, every conversation you has really mostly relates to the business and leading, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a very significant difference for me of just like, yeah, you can kind of like let it all hang out and be yourself, and it's going to be okay. And there was I think a lot of good that comes with that too back in the day for both of us.
Yeah.
For
sure.
The businesses and the people that we worked with and around. It doesn't articulate the same way.
Well, it kind of taps into that conversation we had last week, Chris, where you were talking about, I asked you guys about your ups and downs, and Chris, you were saying, your ups and downs had to do with me and the working relationship that we have, and how you like to have this mindset of, yes, anything's possible, let's try it. And I feel like that is a mindset that it's probably easier to have in a group of friends than it is in a group of employees.
Well, in a group of friends, everything is so much, I don't want to say lower stakes, but it's so much more free flowing.
Yeah.
It's very malleable.
Yeah. If we're working together as friends, if we're just working on something and you do something that I don't like, I can look at you and be like, what the fuck are you doing? This is the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And you're like, yeah, okay, fuck, whatever. Like, but this motherfucker, and you're having this riff where it's like, you can't do that, nor should you want to with an employee. It's a completely different situation. And I'm sure you can feel the same thing to where there's a difference between you hanging out with your closest friends and you spending intentional time with Kira. And as your employee, you guys have a different relationship. She's your employee. And no matter how casual it gets, maybe you're not at work, maybe you're at a work function. Maybe, we're going out to one of our dinners and it's more of a team building thing. And it's a little bit more lax than the straight up work environment. It never goes to the level of I'm hanging out with my best friends. It's just a different thing. And I think one of the shocking things to me was we were working on this thing so much, building Cat and Cloud, creating this business, that it was years before I kind of peeked my head up out of the hole and realized, where the fuck are all my friends?
Yeah, totally.
Like, where did they go? Like, I don't have any friends. I have working relationships and I have my wife, and that's about it. But where are the homies at?
Mm-hmm.
Where'd they go? I don't know where they went. And trying to cultivate that again is a really big chore. And every interaction, even in that friend zone now, it takes a longer time to get to the truth, I feel like, when you have something like that. So for example,
for sure,
one of the things, I've been hanging out with the Driving While Awesome guys and doing some car stuff lately, and people who discover that I'm one of the owners here, one of the things they ask is like, how's business? And I'm
always,
how's business?
The word how's business is like,
how's business? It's a really hard question to answer in the first place because it's
generally good.
It's and it's kind of like asking how's life?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot of different things at a lot of different times. I really can't can it for you.
I've been trying to. I signed up to go to a therapist, and they messaged me.
Props, dude.
They messaged me last week, and they're like, how's it going? And my first response was, that's a loaded question.
You're
like,
all totally.
They're ready for that. That's awesome, dude.
Anyway,
stoked for
all
you.
right. How's business?
How's business? So on one end, there's a million different ways I could go with that answer. And then I'm gauging, do I know this person well enough to really be honest with them about how business is? Because there's a lot of,
how deep can I go?
Yeah, how deep can I go? And that's something that you're navigating in social situations too, because I don't want to be that guy. You can lead with positivity, you can lead with negativity, you can give a 50-50 split, whereas I'm trying to always lead with positivity, because when I step back and look at how business is, I'm really grateful for what we have here. So it's
Exactly.
really hard for me to lead with what's shitty, but at some point it's nice to be able to have friends that you can just vent to and just be like, bro, had the fucking wildest day. Like this happened, and they can understand that despite all of those bad things,
You still love your work.
you still love your work,
peeps.
and you're grateful for all the people around you. So now even stair-stepping into that takes a longer time, because when I, again, rewind and you're with your friends, people ask you any question, you can just kind of shoot them as straight as you want to be, and it's no factor.
Well, and they're working on the same kind of stuff as you too, so they understand quicker. That's, I think, a problem, or what's challenging for me is that, I would draw a lot of inspiration just riffing with people, even if I didn't agree with anything they had to say. If you're talking about what you do and you're talking about how you do it, you end up walking away, at least I end up walking away feeling better in some capacity, or even learning something, or being validated, etc. So like, we don't do that, and in general, people don't do that as much. There's far less people trying to run in a values-based business that actually sees through its values to the lowest, core denominator anywhere. Like that, I feel like that's a challenge. So even conversating, about that, conversing, I was like, both can work.
Conversating.
Yeah.
I like it.
With people about that, they're like, oh yeah, we've talked to people who are really high-level business folk who are like, yeah, the core values, and then they don't actually understand that we're trying to make our core values land in a way that everybody understands.
Yeah,
so we're a little bit on an island too, trying to, I wouldn't even call it pioneer, but trying to be authentic to who we are on a very real level. That's something a lot of businesses don't actually do.
Well, and like you were saying, having the real conversations, it can lead to inspiration, but it can also, cement your ideas. It's like if you're having to defend something, it becomes, oh no, I really do believe in this, or oh, I really actually do think this, and now I have like the clarity to double down on it.
Right.
And so yeah, having those conversations, having those vent times with those people can actually lead to inadvertent inspiration in something that you already thought you believed, but is just now a harder belief. Your beliefs go hard.
Yeah, I think that's all true. And I think the pandemic, though, was a challenging portion where there was always those consistent check-ins of some capacity through events and things, and you pause those for a while, and I haven't been to those. So for me, that's a little bit of it as well, because you do also get you're not getting a lot of validation from people who work for you if you're the owner, and you don't necessarily deserve it, and you shouldn't necessarily get it. You get validation from external sources a little in terms of people who come to our business, but when you're being honest, it's like, thank you. I'm really proud that we've created this place. The people inside of that place, and I'll name drop them when people talk about it, they're the ones who served you and gave you that experience, right? So again, I'm not getting fed in the same capacity as I used to when I was that person, right? Where it's like,
you get more feedback behind the bar
yeah,
than you do as a business
owner.
owner.
Gosh, and I felt, even working in the bar for 3 hours the other day, it's like people are just stoked on the Spro they're pulling, and it feels really good, because you are like, this thing that I am in love with, and specialty coffee, that I can do on a global level, it's like I am really good at it, which is also something that's an interesting challenge, is to be it's coffee. So I understand you're not a pro sports player, but if you were to be like a pro sports player and then to not play your pro sport anymore is a unique feeling, because you do get something from that. So when you don't play, I don't get that thing. So it feels really nice to be like, yeah, you are one of the best, and then people are elevating too, but you've been one of the best in the world at this thing.
Yeah.
And you don't even really get to do it very much, because you're trying to provide opportunity for other people to come up in it. It's a weird place to be for me, for sure. Still finding my way, guys. Like Michael W. Smith once said, roaming through the night, find my place in this world.
Place in this world.
So weird that everybody knows that
place in this world.
That's a Christian crossover.
I think that's why, dude, it slammed into the freaking mainstream for just a minute.
Oh man, yeah, it dipped in And then dip that, dude. Yeah,
Just
that
like the
was
American
real,
Tail, dude. Feifel.
dude.
Hey everyone, that's the podcast for the week. Thanks so much for listening. If you heard something that inspired you, let us know, or tell a friend. These are the types of connections that are the most important to us and that we seek to create every day. If there's something you heard and you want to know more about, send us an email to podcast@catandcloud.com or head to our website, catandcloud.com/podcast, and let us know. While you're on our site, check out everything we have to offer. Dive deep into one of our single origin coffees or pick up a little treat for yourself. We have something for everyone, so check it out. Also, find us in the usual places, YouTube, Instagram. We're always there sharing amazing things. All right, that's it. Thanks everyone for being awesome. We'll be back next week.